I ran. I ran like death was right behind me, though honestly it felt like I was the one calling it closer, taunting it to hurry up already. The night air in the industrial district tasted like rust and burnt ozone, thick enough to scrape the back of my throat. Neon signs flickered overhead, reflecting off rows of stacked shipping containers that formed a maze of narrow corridors. My boots slammed against metal grates, my breath tearing itself out of my chest as I clutched the backpack tighter against my side. Inside it, the flash crystal. Inside the flash crystal, enough evidence to bring down a government-sanctioned nightmare. Inside me, panic, stubbornness, and the very specific brand of idiocy inherited from my father. "You're not a thing, Kyle." His voice echoed in my head, steady and warm despite the sirens screaming in the distance. "You're not a mark. Never let them make you one." I gritted my teeth. "Trying, Dad," I muttered between breaths. Trying very hard not to become a smear on the pavement. Behind me, something shifted. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't even distinct. It was a vibration. A low hum that rolled through the air, brushing against my skin like static. An alpha's suppressive aura. My blood froze, then boiled, then froze again. Perfect. Just what I needed. I forced myself to sprint faster, weaving between the containers, slipping on a wet patch and nearly face-planting into a wall. The scent grew stronger, the unmistakable cool sharpness of an alpha in full pursuit. I could practically feel his attention on me, a pressure between my shoulder blades. Just get to the drop point. Just 5 more steps. I turned a corner and slammed into a wall of muscle. Not a wall, a man. A very large, very silent man who appeared out of nowhere like a shadow that decided to manifest in physical form. My legs buckled. I stumbled back, but a hand shot out, catching my wrist with calm precision. Not painful, not harsh, just inevitable. "Let go," I hissed, pulling against his grip. He didn't. He didn't even seem to try. He just stood there, tall, steady, unmoving. His silhouette outlined in dim blue neon. His eyes were colder than the night air, a pale gray, sharp as steel that had never once dulled. "You run," he said, voice low and even, like someone who's tired of living. I blinked at him, breath still ragged. "And you talk like someone who's tired of thinking." For a moment, just a moment, something twitched in the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. A reaction he probably wasn't used to having. Good. If I was going to die, I could at least be annoying. He stepped closer. The scent of him hit me. Crisp, clean, dangerously controlled. An alpha scent, designed to make omegas fold. I didn't fold. I straightened my spine, because my father didn't raise a coward. His eyes narrowed the tiniest fraction as if he noticed that. Or as if he noticed that I noticed him noticing. "Stop struggling," he said. "Stop existing," I shot back. He exhaled slowly, as though counting to 10 in a language only alphas were taught. His grip tightened just enough to still my movement, but there was no cruelty in it. Only inevitability, like gravity. His other hand reached for my backpack. "Don't," but he'd already unzipped it, already pulled out the black flash crystal, already saw everything. The neon light caught on the edges of the device, painting the reflective surface in pink and electric blue. His gaze lifted to mine, and that was the first moment I realized something was wrong. He didn't look furious. He didn't look triumphant. He looked analytical, as though he'd found a puzzle piece that shouldn't exist. "You risked your life for this," he said quietly. "I risked my life," I snapped, "so you wouldn't ruin more of ours." His brows lowered almost imperceptibly. I couldn't tell if it was confusion or annoyance, or both. "You're an omega," he said. "You should have been caught earlier." "Oh. Sorry for the delay," I said. "Next time I'll trip on purpose." Another twitch at the corner of his mouth. Just as fast, it was gone. He lifted the flash crystal, examined it, studied me again. Then he said the words I'd never expected to hear. "You're coming with me." A command. Calm. Final. My pulse thudded painfully in my ears. "No, no, no, no," I'd rather bleed out in this neon-lit alleyway than end up in the hands of someone like him. Someone with a bite strong enough to crush bone. Someone whose mark meant ownership, life sentence, erased autonomy, paramarking, forced reassignment. The nightmare whispered to terrified Omegas since childhood. My fingers curled into fists. I won't be a thing. I won't be a mark. I won't be his. But his grip didn't loosen. His gaze didn't waver. And my last thought as darkness edged around my vision was terrifyingly simple. Not the rebranding. Please. Anything but that. I'd rather die. I woke up to the sound of my own heartbeat. Too loud. Too fast. Too alive. The ceiling above me was white. Blindingly white. The kind that made you suspect someone installed extra bulbs just to ruin your day. The air smelled of antiseptic and cold metal. I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The room tilted like I'd been spun in a centrifuge. A soft chime pulsed from the corner. I turned my head. A floating panel hovered near the wall. Transparent, softly glowing, covered in shifting lines of data. Scent signatures. Emotional readouts. Omega, behavioral markers. Every time I exhaled, the display flickered. Great. I wasn't just imprisoned. I was being scanned like a particularly nervous hamster. I pushed myself upright, rubbing at my forehead. The more awareness returned, the more the fear did too. Quiet, sharp, sitting under my ribs. They had me. They really had me. Before panic could fully bloom, the door slid open with a hiss. He stepped in, the alpha from the alleyway. He didn't need an introduction. His presence filled the room before he spoke. Tall frame, shoulders squared, posture military clean. Gray tactical uniform, buttoned perfectly. Hands clasped behind his back, like he'd been born knowing how to intimidate a room without moving. His gaze swept over me. Calm. Analytical. Not predatory. Just controlled in a way that was almost worse. Comfortable? He asked. I blinked up at him. Oh, absolutely. 5 stars. Cozy decor, stunning views, would recommend to friends. One dark eyebrow lifted a millimeter. Then he gestured toward the doorway. Get up. Does please not exist in your vocabulary? Not when the subject is a captured infiltrator. Subject, I echoed. Wow. You really know how to make a guy feel special. He didn't answer. He simply waited until I stood, slowly, cautiously, because I still wasn't convinced. My legs would cooperate, and then guided me through a corridor into another room. This one was worse. A single metal chair bolted to the floor, a reflective wall, one-way glass no doubt, and along the far side, embedded in the walls, rows of faintly glowing sensors. Emotion readers, scent analyzers, alpha dominance monitors. Great. So now I was a science project. He didn't have to push me into the chair. I sat voluntarily, mostly because standing felt like providing him with too much surface area to grab. He remained standing across from me, hands still behind his back. Let's begin, he said. I rolled my eyes. Sure. Torture? Memory removal? Tea? He blinked once. You talk too much for someone in my custody. Oh, I plan to talk even more. It's my only defense. His jaw tightened, but not in anger, more like he was noting something, calculating. Then something unexpected happened. The sensors behind him hummed to life, soft blue pulsing. I watched the readings flicker. Fear index, low. Submission rating, minimal. Aromatic stress markers, irregular. Omega compliance response, error. The screen actually said that. In red. I stared. He stared. Then his gaze lifted to me with a sharp, assessing focus that made my stomach flip. You're not afraid? I shrugged. I didn't say that. I'm terrified. I just don't show well. He stepped closer. The sensors pulsed again. Another error. I've interrogated dozens of Omegas, he said quietly. None of them sit like this. Oh. How do they sit? Kneeling? Crying? Singing you lullabies? Shaking, he corrected, avoiding eye contact. Responding to dominance. I don't do dominance, I said. Something flickered in his expression. Interest, but buried under so much discipline most people would never have noticed. He turned to the glass. "Cancel the transfer order," he said. A voice responded through the speaker. "Sir? Protocol states." "Cancel it," he repeated. "Prisoner 47 remains in Sector D under my supervision." My breath caught. Transfer order. There was only one place they would have sent me. The disposal unit. The place where Omega minds were wiped clean. Bodies repurposed. Names erased. I swallowed hard. He approached me again, stopping only when he stood directly in front of my chair. "Until I understand what you are," he said. Not unkindly, but with terrifying certainty. "You stay with me." My pulse hammered so loud I was sure the sensors were picking it up. He wasn't holding me like a thing. He was holding me like a question he needed answered. And somehow, that was more dangerous. If Sector D was where they didn't kill you immediately, then Ash's office was where they made you wish you were a little less alive. Cold, clean, uncomfortably organized. Steel filing cabinets lined the walls like soldiers at attention. No personal photos, no color except the faint bluish glow from the hollow screens. It felt like stepping inside the mind of someone who'd trained himself not to need anything. Ash stood behind his desk, reviewing something on a tablet. He didn't look up when I entered. 2 guards had escorted me here, but he dismissed them with a single nod. The door hissed shut behind me. Silence. I crossed my arms. "Wow. Love what you've done with the place. So warm and inviting. Still nothing. Is the decorating philosophy here emotional repression chic or—" "You don't have to talk," he said finally, still reading. "I don't have to breathe either. But here we are." That made him look up. Slowly. With a kind of controlled patience that felt more like a verdict than attention. "You're trying to provoke me," he said. "No, I'm just naturally charming like this." His eyes narrowed slightly. "You want me to raise my voice, or threaten you, or display dominance. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds weird. You expected a reaction," he continued calmly. "And you're irritated you didn't get one." I scoffed. "What, now you read emotions too?" "Let me guess. That comes with the tactical uniform?" He didn't rise to it, didn't snap, didn't even blink, and that annoyed me more than anything. "What do you actually want from me?" I demanded. "Why drag me into your minimalist nightmare of an office?" "You refuse to follow basic instructions," he said simply. "That's because you don't say, please." He stared at me. I stared back. Because if he expected me to avert my eyes like an obedient Omega, he would have to wait until the sun went supernova. A faint shift in the air hit me, soft and thick, like pressure rolling across my skin. His dominance aura. I felt it. I registered it. And then, nothing. It moved past me the way wind moves around a rock, parting, redirecting, dissipating. I didn't fold. I didn't lower my head. I didn't feel the instinctual pull to obey. Instead, I tilted my head. Is that supposed to do something? His brows lowered by a fraction. Surprise, maybe. Or irritation. Hard to tell with someone who had the emotional range of a marble statue. "You're an Omega," he said. "You should respond." "I'm sorry I'm disappointing you. Truly. It's keeping me up at night. You don't respond to direct commands. Well, maybe try indirect ones. You don't respond to my aura. Maybe it's broken," I offered. "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" Silence. Then, barely visible unless you were staring right at him like I was. His lips twitched. Just for an instant. Gone in a heartbeat. A crack in the armor. Small but unmistakable. And I hated that I noticed. His gaze lingered on me a second too long, tracing my face, my posture, the way I stood with stubborn defiance. Not like prey, not like property, more like, no. No. Absolutely not. I wasn't going there. He finally turned away and moved behind his desk. "You're not reacting the way Omegas react," he said quietly. "Your physiology is normal. Your scent markers read as Omega. But behaviorally, I'm not behaving right. Is that it? Sorry, let me grab the manual. I'm trying to understand you. Well, that makes one of us." He ignored that and walked toward the reinforced door leading to the small isolation room I'd been assigned. The guards usually escorted me, but he gestured instead. Follow me. No. He turned. No? It's not a very polite command. His eyes met mine. Something in them tightened. Not anger, not dominance. Something sharper, more human. Then, soft but firm, come here. I stepped forward. I hated that I did, but not because of his rank, not because of his aura, not because of instinct. Something else pulled me. Something subtler, quieter, like gravity shifting its mind. He opened the door to the small isolation room. Plain bed, metal shelf, nothing special. But when I stepped inside, he hesitated, just a second, before the door closed. A hesitation that said he wasn't indifferent. And that realization hit me with a force I wasn't prepared for. It bothered me that he cared at all. Or worse, that I cared that he cared. If I ever make a list of worst ways to spend a morning, being strapped into a multi-angle lab scanner while an alpha studies me like a glitching program will definitely be top 5, maybe top 3. The scanner's circular frame hummed around me, projecting faint light across my skin, mapping stress levels, scent emissions, neurological responses. I could see Ash through the transparent barrier, arms folded, posture textbook straight. His expression didn't change, but the longer he watched me, the more I got the sense he didn't like what he was seeing. Begin scent exposure, he instructed. A vent hissed. The air warmed, thickened, and filled with unmistakable alpha musk. Dominant, commanding, designed to elicit instinctive compliance. I blinked once. Twice. That was it. Ash's brow twitched. No reaction. I reacted. I protested. I'm disgusted. That's not the expected response. Well, maybe adjust your expectations. He didn't answer. He tapped something on the console. Proceed to fear stimulus. A low, vibrating thrum rolled over my skin, activating the primal parts of the nervous system that screamed predator nearby. The same system that should have sent an Omega into trembling submission. I yawned. Ash, I said, I'm begging you. At least play a scary sound. A scream. A ghost. Maybe a tax auditor? His jaw clenched. The monitors behind him lit up in red again. Omega fear response. Insufficient. Autonomic submission. Absent. Dominance compliance. Error. Ash watched the readings, exhaling slowly, as if trying not to lose the last thread of patience he had. Why don't you respond? He asked. His tone wasn't angry, more like genuinely confused. On me, Omegas tremble. I tested the scanner restraints. Maybe they're just very sensitive. Or maybe you're just... don't. Eyes narrowed. Boring, I finished cheerfully. He muttered something under his breath. Too soft to catch. Probably a prayer for strength. Activate vocal pressure, he said to the tech. The speakers crackled, and suddenly Ash's voice came through, cold, commanding, saturated with alpha force. Kyle Neal. I stared at him. Then I lifted an eyebrow. Are you practicing for a villain audition? The tech's head snapped up, shocked. The sensors almost short-circuited from the abrupt spike in anomalies. Ash dismissed the tech with a curt, "Leave us." The door slid shut. He stepped closer to the scanner. Not close enough to touch me, just close enough that his scent, his heat, his presence filled the confined space. And something strange happened. The magical sensor, a tiny orb embedded in the scanner ring, flared. Soft gold light, pulsing once, then twice. Not fear, not compliance. Something else. Something between us. Something neither of us expected. Ash's eyes flicked to the orb, then back to me. His voice dropped, almost cautious. That has never reacted like that. I swallowed. My throat was suddenly too dry. Faulty wiring, I said lightly. Or proximity, he countered. The orb pulsed again, brighter. He stepped back immediately, jaw tightening. End test. The restraints released. I slid off the platform, rubbing my wrists. My legs were steady, but my thoughts weren't. Ash watched me too closely, as if trying to parse emotions he wasn't supposed to have. And that made me uneasy. I expected cruelty, arrogance, domination, anything typical, of a high-ranking alpha interrogator. But he didn't touch me, didn't threaten me, didn't even raise his voice. Instead, he assigned me to private housing, not a holding cell, not the communal Omega dorms, a private block directly adjacent to his office. When the guards escorted me down the sterile hallway to the new quarters, whispers spread like wildfire. Why the Omega by Commandant Hale? He's dangerous. No, Hale's interested. Interested how? Don't be stupid. He's not capable of that. I didn't know which rumor bothered me more. The door to my new room slid open. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean. Bed, storage compartment, soft lighting, even a window. Too nice for a prisoner, too close to him. When the guards left, silence settled like dust. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, trying to slow my breath. Ash didn't treat me like property, didn't force me down, didn't use his rank like a weapon, and somehow, that threw me off balance in a way violence never could, because I knew how to fight cruelty. But kindness was a battlefield I'd never trained for. I learned something important during my first week in the private block. Ash Hale hated inconvenience, which meant, of course, that I made it my personal mission to become one. The morning started exactly the way he didn't want it to, with me in his office, sitting on his desk. Again, Ash stood by the window, reviewing a dossier while dawn light filtered through the clouds, soft and gray. A perfect aesthetic match for his personality. He didn't look up when he spoke. "You're in my spot." I took a slow sip from the mug I'd absolutely not stolen from the guard kitchen. "Your spot is the floor?" Interesting choice. He turned, expression perfectly calm. So calm it was clearly manufactured. "That is my desk. That is my coffee. That is my blanket," he added, eyes narrowing at the soft gray fabric wrapped around my shoulders. I tugged it tighter. "Finders keepers. You found it on my chair. Then maybe don't leave valuable assets unattended." His nostrils flared ever so slightly. A micro-expression of alpha-level annoyance. I savored it. With quiet, resigned precision, he walked over to the desk and moved one of his hollow pads 2 inches to the left. I slid to match it. He moved a pen. I slid again. He adjusted a datapad. I mirrored him, still perched on the desk, still wrapped in his blanket like a smug burrito. Finally, he stopped and looked at me. "Kyle." "Yes, Commander?" "Get off my desk." I gave him my sweetest smile. "Say, please." He exhaled slowly. "You're impossible, and yet here I am." His gaze swept over me, exasperated but not angry, not dangerous. It was almost patient, which made my stomach do something stupid and inconvenient. The door panel chimed. Ash glanced at me, then strode across the room. "Stay here," he ordered. "I'll think about it." He paused. His jaw ticked once, just once, before he left. The second he disappeared, I made a beeline for the tiny guard kitchen downstairs. Because if I didn't drink something caffeinated soon, I'd start seeing sounds. I was halfway through brewing a definite violation of several rules when Ash stepped into the doorway behind me. "How?" he asked flatly. "Did you get out of your room without triggering the monitor?" "I'm an enigma," I said, shoving the mug under the drip. He walked over, plucked the mug out of my hands, and placed it on the counter with military precision. "That is unauthorized. That is essential for my survival." He ignored me and confiscated the blanket off my shoulders. I reached for it. "No," he said. "Mine. No. The people will rise. It's going back in my office." He slung it over his arm like evidence and walked out. I chased him all the way down the hall like a sleep-deprived cat after a laser pointer. Back in the office, he finally turned to face me. "You're sick," he said. I blinked. "Excuse you?" "You're sniffling. Your temperature reads elevated. Your scent profile has shifted." He paused. "You're ill." I crossed my arms defensively. "No, I'm just cold." "That's why you stole the blanket," he said, not even phrasing it as a question. "No," I shot back. "I stole the blanket because it was cozy." Without another word, He left the office. I sat on the desk again, partly because it annoyed him, partly because it was the only warm surface in the building. He returned 30 seconds later with a small box of medication and a thermos. He placed them beside me, then turned to leave. "Wait," I said. He paused in the doorway. "You're not giving me orders?" "No." "You're not forcing me to take them?" "No." "You're not marking your territory by demanding obedience?" His voice was steady. "You're sick. You need rest. That's all." I stared at him. He wasn't pulling rank. He wasn't demanding compliance. He wasn't using his authority or his aura. He was just helping, like a person, like someone who wasn't supposed to care but did anyway. And somehow, that was the moment everything tilted a little. Because cruelty I could fight, but kindness? Kindness was dangerous. Kindness made walls crumble. If Ash Hale's office was a shrine to order, the hidden comms room 3 floors down was the opposite, dusty, dim, humming with old wiring and forgotten tech. It lived between 2 ventilation shafts and a maintenance closet no one used. Perfect place for a secret conversation I absolutely wasn't supposed to have. The scrambled transmitter flickered as I tuned the frequency. My pulse thudded in my ears. Finally, a voice crackled through. "Kyle? That you?" Relief hit me so fast it left my knees weak. "Yeah. I'm here." Took me a while to get a line out. "Good. We thought you were dead. Thanks for the optimism," I muttered. "We're planning an extraction," the voice continued. "Soon. We just need you to stay put until we can—" Another voice interrupted. More authoritative, sharper. "Wait. Reintegration might not be worth the risk. If he's compromised—" "I'm not compromised," I snapped. Static. Then a third voice, colder than the others. He was valuable with the data. "Now? If the Commandant has him, the intel is already burned. We may need to cut losses." My stomach dropped. Cut losses. They meant me. Not as a person. Not even as a comrade. As a variable. A disposable asset. A tool. I swallowed hard, mouth suddenly dry. "Wow," I said, aiming for sarcasm but hitting closer to hollow laughter. Love the team spirit, but they didn't deny it. The silence said enough. I switched off the transmitter. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the static on the tiny cracked display. Something twisted in my chest. Not grief, exactly. Something sharper. Then, enjoying the private conversation? I spun so fast I hit my shoulder on the wall. Ash stood in the doorway of the comms room, blocking the only exit. Tall. Still. That unreadable calm wrapped around him like armor. "How long were you standing there?" I demanded. "Long enough." His eyes flicked to the transmitter. To me, back again. "Your rebellion," he said quietly, "has no loyalty to you. That's not your business. On the contrary." He stepped closer. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "It is exactly my business if the people you trust consider you disposable." I bristled. "You think you're any better? You're the one holding me here." "To keep you alive," he interrupted. My breath caught. Too fast. Too hard. "No," I said, voice tight. "You're holding me because you want to study me like some weird omega anomaly." "That's also true," he admitted without hesitation. "But it is not the only reason." He walked past me, picking up the abandoned transmitter and switching it fully off. His movements were efficient, precise, controlled. "My people," he continued, "would not have let you speak this long without consequences. And yours aren't trying to help me escape," I snapped. "They're also not planning to abandon or erase you." That one hit deep. A blow clean to the sternum. Something in my chest reacted. Anger, shame, something tangled and hot. "Don't look at me like that," I said. Though he wasn't looking at me at all. "Don't try to act like you're the good guy." He turned then. And something in his gaze was different. Less guarded, more human, which only made it worse. "I am not the good guy," he said, "but I don't discard people who trust me." I don't trust you. No, he agreed. But you don't trust them either. That stung. A beat of silence passed between us, the kind that spoke louder than shouting. He finally broke it. Come with me. I'm not going anywhere with you. But I followed anyway, back through the hidden maintenance access, into the sterile hallway lit by harsh industrial lights. He stopped near the junction, turned to face me, and the atmosphere shifted. Less adversarial, more searching. I want you to explain something, he said. This procedure you risked your life to expose. The rebranding. How does it work? I blinked. You don't know? I've seen the reports, he said. Not the truth. The sincerity in his tone startled me. Ash Hale, the system's blade, asking me, to explain the cruelty his own government sanctioned. It's torture, I said quietly. Magical. Permanent. It tears the existing bond out of an Omega's mind and forces a new one in. I looked away. You know all this. I know the technical description. He shook his head. I don't know the experience. Something inside me twisted again, unexpected and unwelcome. He stared at the floor for a long breath. Then, I know the system breaks people, he admitted. I know it hurts more than it protects. His voice lowered. I just don't know how to stop it. It shouldn't have affected me. He was the enemy. He was the reason I was trapped, monitored, scanned. But he was also the only one who hadn't tried to use me. The only one who hadn't thrown me away the second I'd become inconvenient. The only one, I realized with a sinking feeling, who looked at me and didn't see a tool. He saw a person. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Honestly, I was just trying to get a glass of water. But the hall outside Ash's office was unusually quiet for this hour, and voices carried, sharp, irritated whispers slicing through the dim corridor. He's going too soft. Never seen him hesitate like that. All over some Omega freak he should have neutralized days ago. I stopped moving. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Another voice, older, stern Commander Hale used to be decisive, efficient. Now he's delaying orders, canceling transfers, shielding the prisoner. Prisoner, me. Headquarters is already reviewing his position, the guard continued. A commandant who can't enforce protocol is a liability. The words hit harder than I expected. I stepped back into the shadows, pulse hammering. Anger ignited inside me. Hot, sudden, stupid. Why did it bother me? Why did it matter if Ash lost his job? He was the one holding me here. He was the system's blade. He was the enemy. But the sound of contempt in their voices, as if he were a failure, as if caring, even a little, made him weak. It twisted something inside me I didn't want to acknowledge. Footsteps approached. I slipped away quickly, heading back toward my room, almost running. When the door slid open behind me, I didn't have to turn to know who it was. Why were you in the corridor? Ash asked quietly. I swallowed. I needed water, and overheard something. I didn't answer. He stepped inside, letting the door close behind him. His office lamp cast warm amber light across the room, throwing his profile into sharp shadow, jaw tight, posture rigid, eyes darker than usual. I told you before, he said. You can ask me directly. That snapped something in me. Fine, I said, rounding on him. Why are they trying to remove you? Because of me? His jaw didn't loosen. Yes. The honesty hit harder than any denial would have. I took a step closer without meaning to. Why are you doing this? Why risk your position for someone you don't even like? He held my gaze. I never said I don't like you. That stopped my breath. He didn't move, didn't reach for me, just stood there, steady, grounded, too close. Then why? I whispered. Why keep me here? Why protect me? Why make yourself a target? He inhaled slowly, eyes flicking over my face as if searching for the right angle of truth. Because I want to understand you, he said. Something inside my chest tightened painfully. That still isn't a reason. He stepped closer. Just one step, but it changed the air in the room, thickening it, warming it. You look at me, he said, voice low. The way no Omega ever has. I tried to laugh it off. Like, you're ridiculous? No, he said softly. Like I'm human. Not a weapon, not a uniform, not a rank. My throat felt too tight. Why does that matter to you? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took another step, slow, deliberate, until he stood directly in front of me, close enough that I felt the heat from his body, but not touching. Because, he said quietly, you are the first person who has ever looked at me that way. His words sank into me like a stone dropped into deep water. Heavy, scattering ripples I couldn't stop. For a moment neither of us breathed. Then, beep. The monitor on the wall flared to life, brilliant gold light pulsing in frantic waves. Both our heads snapped toward it. What the hell? I whispered. The sensor data scrolled rapidly. Emotional signatures, scent reactions, energy fluctuations. Not fear, not dominance, not submission. Something else entirely. A spark, a resonance, a connection forming where it shouldn't exist. Ash froze. That shouldn't be possible, he murmured. My heart thudded so hard it hurt. What does it mean? He looked at me again, eyes wide for the first time since I'd met him. It means, he said slowly, a bond is reacting to us. A bond? My voice broke. But you never. I didn't mark you, he said. But something is responding anyway. The sensor pulsed brighter, soft gold, like warm light under skin. Ash stepped back from instinct alone, trying to break the proximity. The sensor dimmed. He stepped closer again, barely a breath. The sensor blazed like a sunrise. We stared at it, then at each other, then at the space between us, charged, fragile, terrifying. You see? He whispered. This is why I kept you close. My voice came out thinner than I wanted. Because you think something's wrong with me? He shook his head. No, he said. Because something about you breaks the rules. And then, softer. And I need to know why you break mine. The top floor of the enforcement complex always smelled like cold steel and politics, like a place where decisions were made without touching the ground. Panoramic windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the city in flat gray layers. Below, the world moved. Up here, everything froze. Ash stood in the center of the hallway, reading a message on his tablet. I knew immediately something was wrong. His shoulders were too still, his breath too tight, his jaw too sharp. Ash, I asked quietly. He didn't answer at first. Then he turned the screen toward me. One line. One order. Commandant Hale will administer a public marking to Omega Subject 40. 7 at 0900 hours to reassert chain of authority. Non-compliance will result in removal from post. The word marking blurred for a moment as heat flooded my face. They want you to... I couldn't even finish. Yes, Ash said. And you're going to... No. The answer came fast, sharp, solid enough to hit my chest. I stared at him. Ash, they'll strip your position. They can have it, he said, voice low. I don't need a title to know who I am. You'll lose everything. I won't lose myself. He looked out the window, as if the city could offer a better explanation than he could. This isn't about control, he said. It never was. Then, quieter. They think a mark is power. But a force bond is just cruelty. I swallowed hard. My throat hurt. So, you're refusing? He turned to me fully. I won't do it. I'm not branding you like livestock. Something inside me fractured at the word. Branding. A memory. A lesson. My father's voice. You're not a mark. Never let them make you one. And Ash was choosing my freedom over his future. I couldn't stay. Not if staying hurt him. So I did something stupid. Heroic. Ridiculous. Desperately. Profoundly stupid. I ran. Not toward the ground floor this time. Every exit there was locked tight. I ran toward the vent system. The panel wasn't even secured. I'd tampered with it weeks ago for research. I hauled myself inside, ignoring the scrape of metal against my palms. My shoulders barely fit. The duct was dark, hot, suffocating. But it was away from him. Away from what I'd cause by staying. If I disappeared, they wouldn't have reason to punish him. That's what I told myself as I crawled deeper into the narrow shaft. Then a hand closed around my ankle. Firm. Controlled. Impossible to escape. Kyle. My blood froze. How the hell had he... I kicked back instinctively, but he didn't flinch. He pulled me gently but inexorably out of the vent until I slid onto the floor at his feet, gasping. He crouched beside me, eyes steady, breathing controlled despite the chase. "You really thought," he said, voice low but steady, "that you were going to disappear alone?" I didn't answer. His expression didn't shift into anger, didn't harden, didn't even cool. If anything, something in it softened, dangerously. "I told you already," he said. "You don't get to decide that." My chest tightened painfully. "I wasn't trying to run from you. Then, what were you trying to do?" "Protect you." Silence. The city lights through the panoramic windows flickered across his face. Soft gold and midnight blue. His eyes looked darker in that glow, deeper. "You think losing you protects me?" he asked quietly. "I thought they wouldn't punish you if I wasn't here." "Then you don't understand at all." He reached out, stopping just short of touching my arm, a hesitation I felt deeper than any contact. "Kyle," he said gently, "I'm already in trouble because I chose you." My breath caught, spiked, cracked. "And if you vanish," he continued, "that only proves them right. That I lost control. That I failed." I swallowed. "I didn't want to be your downfall." His voice softened in a way that made my lungs stop working. "You're not my downfall." I closed my eyes for half a second. It didn't help, because the truth hit me with terrifying clarity. I wasn't afraid of him. I wasn't afraid of the mark. I wasn't afraid of the system. I was afraid of losing him. Terrified. When I opened my eyes, he was still there. Steady, grounded, unbearably close. "You're not leaving," he said quietly. And for the first time, I didn't want to. The central command block always felt like the spine of the complex. Cold, rigid, humming with authority. Screens lined the walls with scrolling data. Officers moved in sharp lines, every step purposeful. It was the kind of place where no one breathed, unless protocol permitted it. Ash walked beside me in silence. Something in the air was wrong. Too still, too expectant. When we stepped into the main control room, I understood why. 4 senior officers were waiting. Their expressions were carved from marble. Commander Hale, the highest-ranking one, said, voice clipped, "Your position is hereby suspended pending investigation." Ash didn't flinch. "You are relieved of authority effective immediately," another added. "Turn over all access and step away from the subject." Subject. Me. And then, the final blow. Omega-47 is to be transferred to the neutralization lab for immediate processing. My stomach plunged. Neutralization. No trials. No second chances. Just oblivion. I waited for Ash to protest, to roar, to fight. He didn't. He stood still, perfectly still, as though absorbing the impact so it wouldn't hit me. One of the officers gestured to the guards. "Remove the Omega from his presence." I stepped forward before they could take a single step. "I'll go," I said. Ash's head snapped toward me. Sharp. Shocked. "No." "Yes," I forced out. "If I resist, they'll blame you. They'll punish you harder." "I'm not letting that happen." His eyes burned into mine, intense enough to make my breath stumble. "Kyle," he said quietly, "don't do this." But I already had. I raised my hand slightly in surrender. "It's fine," I said to the officers. "I'll comply." It wasn't fine. Every word tore at something inside me. Something fragile, something that felt like it had been growing slowly between us without permission. The guards approached. Ash inhaled sharply, as if stopping himself from tearing them apart. "Escort him," the officer commanded. They took me by the arms. I didn't struggle. Didn't fight. Didn't speak. I just looked at Ash. He looked back like I'd just stabbed him. The doors to the main block closed behind me with a low mechanical thud. And then, chaos. The lights flickered. Security panels rebooted. Alarm locks disengaged one by one like falling dominoes. The guards holding me spun in confusion. What the? The system's voice blared through the hall. Unauthorized override detected. Command access. Hale, Asher. I didn't even have time to react before Ash appeared at the end of the corridor. Moving fast, precise, unstoppable. He knocked one guard unconscious with a single blow. The second reached for his weapon. Ash didn't give him the chance. In less than 3 seconds, both were on the floor. He grabbed my wrist, not harshly but firmly, and pulled me into a maintenance corridor. Ash, I choked. This way, he said, already keying in commands on the panel. Doors slid open at his touch, systems bending around him instead of resisting. You're breaking every rule, I whispered. Yes. You'll be hunted. I know. They'll destroy your career. Your life. He didn't look back. It was never my life. The lift door slammed shut behind us. He bypassed the override, sending us plummeting toward the restricted sublevels. Sparks shot from the sensors overhead, flickering violently, glitching through error codes. The bond resonance from earlier, but now, stronger, wilder. No, 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 I muttered, as the lights in the lift strobed gold. Ash, the sensors. I see them, he said. They're reacting to us. I know. The lift jerked violently, overloaded by the magic or by the system fighting back, then stabilized just long enough for the doors to crack open on sublevel 4. Ash pulled me out moments before the lift alarm screeched. We staggered into the dim hallway. Pipes hissed overhead. The air smelled of dust, old concrete, and freedom I wasn't ready to believe in. Ash, I said, chest tight, voice shaking, why are you doing this? He turned to me slowly, and I saw it. Finally saw it fully, without his walls in the way. Not dominance, not command, not duty. Choice. His choice. I told you, he said softly. I won't let them take you. The bond sensor on the wall sparked again, flaring gold as if answering him. Another step forward and we were close, too close, almost touching, breath mingling. Ash. My throat tightened painfully. For the first time, I couldn't hide the crack in my voice. Don't leave me. Everything in him stilled. And then, very quietly, like something sacred, never, the bond sensor shattered behind him in a burst of gold light. But neither of us looked away. Neither of us stepped back. Because running wasn't an option anymore. Not for him. Not for me. The abandoned house sat at the edge of the forest, wrapped in shadows and wind. From the outside it looked forgotten. Boards weathered, roof sagging slightly, paint long faded by rain and sun. But inside, in the small room Ash had managed to make safe, warm light flickered from a single old lamp. Dust motes floated lazily in the air. The silence was soft, not suffocating. For the first time since I'd been caught, there were no guards. No sensors, no orders, no walls closing in. Just us. Ash closed the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment, as if letting the weight of the last hours slide off his shoulders. His gray eyes met mine, and something in them, tension, fear, determination, finally exhaled. We're clear, he said quietly. I sat on the edge of the faded couch, pulling my knees up, still trying to convince myself this was real. Clear? I echoed. What does that even mean anymore? He moved to sit across from me, though not too close. Ash never crossed a line without checking if it existed. It means, he said, for now, no one can track us. For now, I repeated. We looked at each other in the warm, flickering light, the distance between us feeling heavier, not empty. Freedom didn't feel like I expected. It felt fragile, like something I wasn't sure how to hold. Ash studied me with a quiet, steady focus that made my breath stutter. I could see it in the way his fingers curled slightly on his knee. The conflict of wanting to reach for me and refusing to presume he could. You're safe, he said, as though trying to convince himself as much as me. I laughed softly. Are you safe? Probably not. At least you're honest. He didn't smile, but there was a softness around his eyes I hadn't seen before. Silence stretched. warm and tentative. Then the air changed. A subtle shift, a pulse, not sharp this time, not overwhelming, soft, warm, like someone brushing knuckles across the inside of my chest. The familiar golden glow shimmered in the air between us, faint but unmistakable, the unsealed bond reacting again. I sucked in a breath. Ash. He straightened immediately. Don't be afraid. I'm not, I whispered. That's the problem. His eyes softened in a way that should have been illegal. This isn't a command, he said. Not dominance, not instinct. If you feel anything, it's your choice. For a long second, neither of us spoke. Then, slowly, I slid off the couch and crossed the few steps between us. I stopped right in front of him. His breath hitched, just barely, but I heard it. Ash, I said quietly, if anyone has a right to leave a mark on me. His hands clenched at his sides, knuckles flashing white. It's you. His eyes snapped up to my face, to my expression, searching, confirming, terrified to misunderstand. Kyle, he said, voice rough, I won't do anything you don't want. I know. And even if you do want it, I won't hurt you. I know that too. His breath came out in a shudder. Then what are you asking? He whispered. I reached out, touching his jaw gently with the back of my fingers. It was the first time I'd touched him voluntarily. He didn't move, didn't breathe. I'm asking, I said, if you want to leave a mark I choose. For a heartbeat, everything in him froze, like time itself stalled. Then he spoke, voice barely audible. Only if you allow it. I do. The golden shimmer pulsed again, soft, warm, welcoming. Ash leaned closer, slow enough to give me every chance to pull back. I didn't. His hand slid behind my neck, gentle, steady. I closed my eyes as he brushed his lips against the side of my throat. A pause. A question. One last moment to refuse. I tilted my head instead. His breath trembled against my skin. Then, a touch of teeth. Not a bite. Not a brand. You're not a thing. Not a chain. Just warmth. A spark. A quiet bloom of magic sinking into my skin like sunlight into earth. The bond settled between us. A soft, steady pulse. Not overpowering. Not consuming. Just present. Chosen. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Are you okay? I laughed. Breathless. Are you not even remotely good? I said. Then we match. He huffed a tiny, disbelieving sound. Something dangerously close to a laugh. I slid down onto the couch, pulling him with me until we sat side by side. My shoulder brushed his, and he didn't move away. The magic settled peacefully between us. After a few minutes of quiet, I nudged him lightly. Just so you know, don't expect me to suddenly become well-behaved. If you became well-behaved, he said, that would be the real miracle. So you're saying you're a masochist? He didn't hesitate. Apparently. I grinned. Tragic. He glanced at me, something warm and steady lingering in his eyes. Worth it, he said. And just like that, in the soft light of a borrowed room in a broken house, freedom didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt like a choice we'd made, together. Not alpha and omega, not captor and captive, just two people who finally stopped running and chose each other instead.